Hello and welcome back. I haven't had much time since summer started to work on the trimaran, but I wanted to start sharing some of the other designs I have made for different sailboats that are, I think, interesting enough to share. So this first design I'm going to show you is a monohull. It's actually the smallest sailboat I've designed. And it's the runner-up for the one that I was going to build. Honestly, I would still really like to build it. It's definitely the furthest along in the engineering phase of the boats I've designed. So I'm going to share it with you. I'm going to talk about what I like about the design, what I don't like about the design, and maybe why I ultimately decided to build the trimaran. So yeah, let's get into it. As I said, it is a monohull. It is a twin keel design, and it has 2 roller furling sails. It is 7.5 meters long by, I think, 2 meters, 7 feet, just 7.5 feet wide, whatever that is in meters. I can't remember off the top of my head. If I seem a little loopy, it's because I was stung by a wasp yesterday, so I actually took today off work because my arm looks like Popeye. It's all puffed up. So just bear with me as I try to slur my way through an explanation video. Anyway, more about the boat. I went and looked at a Chrysler 26 out in Michigan, and I was happy with the size because it's a very small boat, very compact. But the problem with that specific boat is it's made like every other sailboat, so it has sort of a rounded top and no real place to put solar. So this was my attempt at making a very small boat, a trailerable boat, that had an appreciable amount of solar on top. And I'm actually sitting at about almost 2,000 watts, I think. So in the back here, each panel represents 100 watts. These panels each represent about 350, and these are all 100 as well. But one of the interesting features of the Cockpit solar panels is they will slide on rails. Oop, if I click the right thing, is they can slide on rails in order to double the capacity back here. Come on. Okay, crisis managed. So jumping back into what I was saying, this is about 800 watts. These 2 center points, or these 2 center panels, can slide along a rail to open up and expose the cockpit. It's about 1900 watts of solar overall, because the boat is based around electric propulsion. That, and I just like having power. I like air conditioning. I like my computers. And you can make water with the energy, which is kind of important when you're out on the ocean. So, looking at some of the other exterior features before we move inside. This rear spoiler, but not a spoiler kind of thing, is actually one of my favorite features about the boat. So it can act as this standing a platform for say processing fish, or there's a little sink here you could wash dishes in, or you could whatever. It's a standing desk if you want. You could prop your laptop on that and work, or whatever. You can hang your fishing rods off the back here for reeling in them 1,000-pound tunas. But one of the more interesting features of it is it rotates down into the water and can act as a swim platform or a pseudo dry dock, or just a way to climb up into the boat. And I really, really like this because, modularity and multi-purpose is definitely the name of the game in a small boat like this, or any really small living space, whether it's just a tiny home on wheels or a sailboat. I think modularity goes a long way to making the space seem bigger and more purpose-built. And additionally, I really, really like what it does for the profile of the boat. It makes it look like a race car, which is fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Anyway, enough about that. So let me show you what the boat looks like with some mannequins on it so that you can see just how small it really starts to be. So obviously you're not going to have a boat just filled to the brim with 6-foot tall dudes. I mean, I guess you could if that's what you want, but all these mannequins are basically to my dimensions. Well, I'm not that fit, but they're all to my dimensions in terms of height. So I'm 6'1", all the mannequins are 6'1", and that gives me a better idea, because this is, all my designs are purpose built for something that I want to sail in, right? So obviously this is a good height for working for someone this tall. But you can see there is not a lot of room. The cockpit has a couple of different options in the back here. This is the one that I ultimately decided on. I will show you the alternate here just so you have an idea of the stuff I was playing around with. So here is another design. This is sort of an inset cockpit. What it does is it creates a level platform, so you can either lay here or you can sit here a bit more comfortably. This is not an extreme angle to sit on, but at the same time it's kind of nice to not be leaning when you're sitting. But I ultimately did not go with this design. One, because I would have to sacrifice about 200 watts of solar, and it would also create a sort of low point here where water could pool up if the boat were not sitting level in the water. So those are both mostly the power, mostly losing the 200 watts of potential solar is what made me stick with the other design. Yeah, so this fully enclosed angle, it increases storage inside, and it allows me not to have to sacrifice any solar. So while we're here, let's talk about the non-existent Bimini, because I did go through several designs for a Bimini, and I'll just show you, I guess, I'll just show you what I got. So this is my fullback version of a Bimini. Now, if I were to use this solar down here would be gone. And it would just be, I would actually probably end up going with the inset cockpit design. But I don't, there's one enormous problem with this. One, it's an engineering challenge to make it strong enough to withstand the potential wind that would be hitting this when you're any sort of heeled over. So you imagine the boat heeled over a little bit and the wind coming off the water just hitting this, and it's going to act like an enormous sail. It's going to spin your butt around in the water, but it's also going to, you know, essentially try and capsize you. So it's a safety problem. Sure, it would be nice to have shade, but at the same time, it also makes it harder to get inside the boat. You have to rely on some electric motors to lift this up, and it creates just too many failure points. I really like it. I like the idea of it. I like the idea of having some shade and a nice protected space under here, but ultimately I just couldn't engineer my way around the pitfalls of it. And I made a couple of these. I made one that wasn't so huge, just a half version, a couple of half versions that are laid out in different, you know, one's front facing, or one's towards the front of the cockpit, one's towards the back. But ultimately I just decided that this guy is what I would go with. Yeah, so this will provide a small amount of shade. If I'm directly sitting right here or standing right here, it's very lightweight. It's manual to put up and down, which means I'm not relying on any mechanical or electromechanical parts that could fail. So it's important from a maintenance standpoint. Now, from a convenience standpoint, yeah, it's not great because you have to manually put it up and pull it down. But it doesn't desperately increase the windage of the boat, and it doesn't really create any challenges to get in and out of the boat. So that's what I'm doing, but I'm going to go ahead and hide that. And then let's go inside the boat and see what it's like inside this ultra tiny boat. Let me hide these real quick. So, whoa. So the entrance of the boat is this two-piece door, and it also has some interesting features that are interesting. Wait, did I just say interesting features? Man, Benadryl is an amazing drug. Anyway, so it can rotate up like this, and then if you're sitting here, it would actually act as a platform. Like you could set a laptop up on here and you'd be sitting your butt down there. Well, I don't have that in the design, but take my word for it. It also, if it's just propped open like this, it'll provide rain protection, but also airflow if you're inside the boat on say on a rainy day. And then this piece will just rotate flat. Both of these will rotate and then lift out of the hinge, right? Because it's sort of a half hinge design. And then this can rotate all the way up, so you can go in and out of the boat. And then it is just a step down. This is the interior floor. So there's no ladder. There are no extreme, like a set of steps to get in and out. It's just one step down. And yeah. So again, this is made to my dimensions. If we look at this, this guy is standing on the floor here, and he can see out this viewing window. So since there's no standing room within the cavity, I do think it's important to be able to get up and stretch out. You know, I'm not one of those guys that's willing to stuff himself in a barrel and bob around on the ocean. That's just not how I want to spend my time. So I needed a space where I could stand up vertically and stretch out. And this little space, met that need. So let's go ahead and hide these guys again. And now let's actually move inside and take a look at what we have going on. So the small little area here to stand, and then here we are. This is the actual, this is the everything. Now the the cushions here are about equivalent to a queen size bed. Oh, but so there you go. You can get two people here, and then all of these cushions are removable. So and then under it you have storage. Now you can see here I have all of these labeled. Well, you know what, we'll just keep doing an interior walkthrough, and then I'll talk about let's talk about the sink first. So this is the sink. It's a cassette style sink, which means you can pull this whole section out. It has a small reservoir for fresh water, a small reservoir for gray water, and it can be pulled out. It can be moved out into the cockpit so you can wash dishes or process a fish or whatever you need to do, or empty it, because there's no other gray tank or black tank on the boat. So yeah, you can just remove this and place it wherever is convenient. And because the boat is mirrored in the back here, you can actually put it on whichever side you want. That way, if you're sitting on the bed platform there, whichever way it's more comfortable to twist to work at that station, it's modular. And then whichever side you don't use is just either another refrigerator, or it's a just a cavity for storage, whatever you want. There is 110 on the boat, so I have many outlets scattered throughout. This is an electric kettle. The boat's entirely electric, so all the appliances are electric. But we'll get into that once we talk about the power systems on the boat. So yeah, electric kettle. I drink a lot of coffee, and then Chemex. And then just, yeah, moving around. You have your storage here on either side. So I kind of labeled these where I think it would be best for stuff to go. So you'd have dry food, wet gear, nothing in that one. Clothes, and then open and open, just so you can kind of see, or you can put in whatever you'd like. Now just looking back, now underneath the cavities for the cockpit, you can, that's just basically another storage potential area. Storage is always the name of the game in a small vessel. So how I have it planned out is I have hydroponics back here, and that is to supplement your food while you're out on the ocean. Now, a lot of people might think it'd be better just to store like dried food or food powder or whatever, and that's totally fine. It's a modular cavity for whatever you like, and I probably wouldn't do both sides. I would do one side with maybe kale and spinach and mustard, and then the other side would probably be the inflatable dinghy. But it's just how I have it sorted out here now. Below, right here and right here, are the refrigerator and a freezer. So they're like I think a 55 quart or 55 liter. I don't remember specifically. I already used 2 of these in my tiny home, and it's worked out for the last 3 years of me living in my tiny home. So I think I could survive with just a fridge and a freezer. And they are DC appliances, so they'll run directly off the batteries without putting any additional load on the inverter. New features, other features. Nope. Okay, so we're just going to keep, we're going to spin around, and we're going to go to the bow of the boat. There's a lot of windows, I think, for Sailboat, so you'll be able to see out in a nice 360-degree configuration. Yeah, okay, so still moving to the bow. This is a tiny cavity that is just almost exclusively for storage. Technically, someone could sleep up here. And here, I'll show you that real quick. But I don't think I could. Let's see here. Yeah, so I'm 6 foot, and you can see my head would be right up against the hull, and my feet would be right up against the hull. So if you're 5'10", maybe this would work. Or obviously if you're shorter than that, it could be a good space to have an additional sleeping area. But I would just be crunched up here. I don't think this would be a good area for me. But it's a huge amount of storage, and if you have, like, I don't know, a kid could sleep up here very comfortably, and they'd have sort of a pseudo private space. Yeah. So let's talk about the storage that's all under the platforms here. So everything is labeled nicely, because on a boat you want to be very organized. So likely you would want to have some sort of spreadsheet where you have like a parts list, and then the location that it is in. So let's say you have air filters, right? And your air filters are all in A3. Well, since you have everything labeled, now you don't have to go through every bin trying to find your air filters when you finally need to change one. All of these labeled bins have quarter turn 3D printed locks that I designed, so it holds the cover tightly to the structure. So if you do capsize, anything that's in these cavities is not gonna fall out and get mixed together. Everything will stay securely inside the storage bin. So let's just hide those for a second so we can see what we got. So these green lines are ducting for ventilation. So there's a, let me just spin around here and show that. So these are two 6-inch blower fans that will suck air from, whoa. Yeah, so the blower fans will pull air from this center, from this mast. Ugh. They'll pull air from this mast, which is hollow, and then push the air through the boat, and then it'll recirculate and come out through the center mast. And that should theoretically create a bit of a convection system. So it'll pull in cool, dry air from up here. Well, relatively cooler and drier than, you know, the interior cavity. And then it'll pull out your hot, humid air up there. So it's sort of maybe gonna help with reducing the reliance on air conditioning. But I fully anticipate having air conditioning in this thing anyway. It will reduce like humidity buildup, so mold will be less of a problem. I'm getting distracted. Where was I? Right, in the bow. Let's go back into the bow. So yeah, talked about that. Oh, I guess there's nothing really else to talk about that. Let's talk about the electrical distribution here for a second. So inside this panel is the inverter and a charger. So the orange lines are low voltage lines, so that's like my 24 and my 12 volt DC, and then the yellow lines are all my AC lines, so that would be 120 on this specific boat, but it could be 240 if I were to go with a different inverter. Oh yeah, and we can talk about, so in the bow there's actually access to this, to the front of the deck here. Oop. And there you go. So you just can enter and exit the interior bow from the front of the deck here. So that makes it better in sort of rough weather if you need to access of the anchor, because there's no windlass on this, right? So the anchor has to be pulled up by hand. So it would make it just a bit safer where you don't have to climb across these solar panels, because solar panels by design are quite slick with a very smooth surface. So you get even just a little bit of water on there and it becomes quite dangerous to crawl across. But if you can just pop out here and get to the anchor, it's a bit safer and you're a bit more protected. Okay, let's move back into the boat and I'll show you the battery cavity and some of the keel design features. So this is just this is a cushion that is also removable. And one interesting feature about this is that this center, or I'm sorry, B2, this B2 locker right here, you can actually remove, and then you can put your feet in this cavity and sit here, and you can sit upright. But I mean, you can also do the same thing back here, like if you just sit on B8 and put your feet towards the refrigerator and freezer. But what I find works for me to eliminate any of the nausea at sea is I always have to orient my body in the direction of travel. So I have to face forward as if I were like driving a car or something. So that's what this feature is to help mitigate, is me being able to orient my body in the direction of travel to reduce any sort of seasickness or nausea. And then again, you just have all of your labeled bins so that you can be very well organized. Underneath B5 is the battery bank. So as designed, this is a 400 amp hour battery bank at 24 volts DC. I have 2 Victron charge controllers, and the B8 and B5, the cavities are the same size. So if I ever need to double my battery capacity to say 800 amp hours, it would be a simple just buy the same batteries again, put them in here, and it'll fit nicely. And it's still center enough that it might be okay for weight distribution, but it's such a small boat it probably won't be actually. Let's look at, well, let's just look like this. So this dark line right here that my mouse is over, this is actually where the keel would attach to the boat. Now you're gonna have to use your imagination here because I haven't actually modeled this in, but what the theory behind it is there would be like little pods here for the ballast, and I would be able to say the boat is listing to one side or the other. I could pull ballast out of right here and say put it over here so that the boat would sit more level in the water. That's the theory behind it. And since it's such a small boat, like even me just walking from one side to the other, it's going to affect the way the boat sits. But this would give me the modularity and the opportunity to level the boat based on sort of where I can distribute and redistribute ballast, which is important. Okay, moving on. What else do I got here? Some neat, I think just some nice design features are things like this. I've put the boat name into the railing, which is a nice touch. I don't know, I'm into things like that. The handles here are, well, they're handles for one, but they can also be used as anchor points if you wanted to make like a, if you wanted to strap across for, say, a seat back or hang anything. I don't think there's enough room to hang a hammock, but if you wanted to, you know, hang some sort of hammock-style chair or something like that, you could do that. Or a clothesline if you really needed to. I don't know how you do that inside, but yeah, you could. I think I talked about that stuff. Within these center columns is a design that I came up with for a Peltier-based water maker. I'm not quite ready to share that with the world yet, but that's how my water maker, that's where my water makers would be. In each column there's a series of tubes and things that would create drinkable potable water from ocean water. But yeah, not ready to share that yet, so we'll just keep moving on. Yeah, I don't know, let's look at the structure of the boat. Well, first let's look at the, since this was so far along in the design phase, I actually had the structure planned out for building it. And let's see, where is that building structure? Yeah, so this was going to be built in a little bit different way. You know, you'd build your, I think they call it a strong back frame, and then you'd build these circles that would encapsulate the boat. And then I would be able to work on any specific part of the boat, or on the hull, simply by rotating the boat using these giant wheels. I don't remember the YouTube name of the guy that I saw do this, but I was fascinated by it when I saw it. And it was a really cool idea, and it's pretty simple, and it allows you to work on it basically as a one-man show, since I don't have anybody to help. Okay, so let's hide that, and then let's look at the actual, say, structure. Yeah, let's look at the structure of the boat. So it's a pretty simple, just bulkhead and rib design. It's just like all my other boats, it's made from a PVC foam core, so sheets of foam then covered with fiberglass. Whew, Benadryl's really kicking in now. Yeah, some of the features. Here's an air conditioner there's one air conditioner that can either go in the back here to cool the interior space, or there's actually an air conditioner that could go up here. It just depends on where I'm willing to sacrifice the storage space. Yeah, your chain locker. You wouldn't be able to carry very much chain, and you might actually have to have like an auxiliary bit of rope that you can just clip on. But again, the boat is so small, like you don't need a huge anchor. This anchor is oversized for this size boat. It's just the one that I actually already own. And you wouldn't need that much chain, but it's always better to have more chain and rope than you think. I think that's it. I don't even remember what I forgot to talk about. So let me know if there's some section of the boat that you want me to talk about more, or to go into greater detail on. And I can definitely make a follow-up video to answer any questions you have about the design, or how whatever, the theory behind why I designed things the way I did, although I covered most of the stuff that I think would be like a question point. The roller furling can either be done manually, or this puck back here, which is intended to be turned by a handle that is pulled in and out. It's just like a sort of standard winch, but it would actually go both directions, so you could spin it, clockwise or counterclockwise. Tons of 3D printed parts for like guides and rails and hatches. And yeah, I hope you found that interesting. I'm going to leave this here for now. Like I said, if you have any questions, put them down in the comments, or send me a message. I have all of the socials at Torn State. So yeah, like I said, hope you found this interesting, and I'll catch you guys later. Cheers.